That kind of stuff with the vaccine and the mandates, that gets me, it really gets me riled up. I hope it gets you worked up as well. Look, again, I'm not against the vaccines. I think you should make the determination for yourself working with your doctor. Although I would say you don't get the Johnson & Johnson. There's other issues related with that vaccine. Moderna seems to be the best one. But if you've had the virus, there's no need to get one. You've heard that on this program. The CDC's not talking about that. I mean, I think they've politicized this, and that's why there's resistance to getting the vaccine, because you wonder, what are they doing? What's this all about? Anyway, speak out about this stuff, okay? Don't be silent. Don't let them mask your voice. Okay. Speaking of cover-ups, the House Select Committee on the events of January the 6th met today for about 3.5 hours of testimony. Now, prior to that, there was a press conference by the Republican leadership in the House, and basically calling attention to the fact that this is a sham. This is a political theater. And this is about, they, according to them, allege that Pelosi is covering up the fact that she had information to suggest that they should have taken action, should have given the Capitol Police more intel and equipment to prepare for what had been alleged or what had been suggested, the intel suggested may have occurred on January the 6th. But I want to go to the Select Committee, the hearing that took place today. Joining me now to talk about what occurred in that hearing is Kristina Wong. She is with Breitbart News, and she reported on today's hearing. Kristina, welcome to Washington Watch.
Thank you for having me on, Tony.
Okay, so let's just start with what was the focus of today's hearing, and what was your takeaway?
Yes, the focus of today's hearing was on the emotional, personal testimony of 2 Capitol Police officers and 2 Metropolitan Police Department officers who were at the Capitol that day dealing with protesters. And so the testimony was highly personalized, everything they had dealt with and faced, and they spoke in detail about fighting with protesters and physically and verbally, and each one gave their own personal story. For instance, we had Sergeant Aquilino Gonell. He is a Dominican immigrant and an Army veteran, and he testified that he was more afraid on January 6th than he was ever during his deployment in Iraq. Then you had Officer Michael Fanone, and he was tased several times with his own taser. He talked about losing consciousness. At one point, he got angry and pounded his hand on the table, and said it was a disgrace that Republicans were downplaying what happened on January 6th. And then you had Daniel Hodges, and he was the officer in the video that pressed against the doors. And he repeatedly called all protesters there at the Capitol terrorists. And then we had Officer Harry Dunn. He said that he was called the N-word and other racist slurs, and other African-American officers were also called racial epithets. And my takeaway was the whole thing felt highly dramatized. It felt scripted. There was a sense from the witnesses, whether they meant to or not, that they were choosing sides. They were highly critical of President Trump and his supporters. One of the police officers said he voted for Joe Biden. And so it did have this feel of political theater, like Republicans earlier that day predicted it would.
Kristina, what I found interesting was the chairman of this select committee, Mississippi Democrat Benny Thompson. He said, this is about. This is what he said. I'm just going to quote from him. Quote: "There's no place for politics or partisanship in this investigation." That's how he opened this up. He said, "Our only charge is to follow the facts where they lead us." Then he went on to say, let's be clear, the rioters that tried to rob us of our democracy were propelled here by a lie. I mean, that certainly sounds like interjecting politics into this, and that they're going beyond just looking for evidence and facts.
Definitely. I heard very little of evidence and facts, and just mostly the officers just talking about how they felt and also their opinions on a lot of things. There was one officer, Officer Hodges, who said that the reason he was fighting for democracy that day, and because the margins were so slim between Republicans and Democrats, he knew he was fighting to protect future votes. I mean, is that his job?
Wow.
I thought his job was to protect members of Congress. So there was a lot of political theater, and it did not stop with the witnesses. You had both Adam Kinzinger, Republican from Illinois, and Adam Schiff, Democrat from California. They both cried. And so those were very dramatic moments. And then you had Liz Cheney. She said that, our kids are watching and we want to get to the bottom of this, and everyone should be subpoenaed who, played a role in this. And so, it was a lot of grandstanding and a lot of just emotion, but very little fact and detail.
And I think that's probably what is going to be the sum total of this select committee. It's going to be a lot of theater. Kristina Wong, so good to have you on the program. Thanks so much for joining us today.